Welcome to the video tour of Farmer's Edge Soil Test Laboratory. In a few short minutes, we'll guide you through the laboratory's work process from receiving field sampled soils through to final reporting. Farmer's Edge Soil Test Laboratory is located in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, and was established in 2009 for the purpose of serving the soil analysis needs of Farmer's Edge. Our peak capacity is 1,200 samples per day on a 3-day turnaround time and begins in our sample receiving department. Here, technicians receive our daily intake of soil collected by Farmer's Edge samplers and delivered by courier. Boxes containing soil samples are unpacked and sorted according to the soil sampling worksheets included with the soil samples. While samples are being unpacked, work begins to enter the soil sample details into our Laboratory Information Management System, or LIMS. Account information, along with grower details, field information, and test packages required, is entered into the LIMS during the sample login process. LIMS handles sample routing through the lab and assigns sample IDs and tests to the incoming samples. LIMS also interfaces with the laboratory instruments, which we'll see later during sample analysis. Soil samples need to be unpacked from their sample bags, spread onto trays, and loaded onto drying carts in order for the samples to be dried before entering the lab. These carts are then placed in our drying room for 6 to 8 hours until the sample is dry enough to grind. The receiving process, including login and sample traying, takes 6 to 8 hours to complete 1,200 samples. In the drying room, the temperature is kept at 40 degrees Celsius or about 105 degrees Fahrenheit using an electric furnace. Humidity from the drying samples is removed using industrial dehumidifiers. In the afternoon, after the samples have dried, sample grinding begins on the samples received that morning. Carts of dry soil are taken from the drying room and are ground in a flail mill. Grinding the samples performs two functions. The soil sample cores are broken down into a fine powder in the soil mill, and the mill also homogenizes the soil sample. The final step in grinding the soil sample is to sieve out any stones or straw and transfer the ground soil into a lab container. After sample grinding, work in the lab can begin. The evening shift uses batch sheets to organize the first step in lab analysis. Here, technicians are scooping the small weights of each sample that will be used the following morning during the extraction process. The samples are grouped by analysis type using a batch sheet generated automatically from the LIMS. The lab batch sheet is a list of samples requiring a particular analysis. The batch sheet also contains quality control samples such as blank, a spiked sample, and sample duplicates. The quality control samples ensure that analysis is valid and measurements are correct. On the second morning, technicians begin with sample extraction. Here, the samples prepared the night before are transferred into lab extraction equipment and extraction chemistry is added. The samples are then placed on a reciprocating shaker for 30 minutes to 2 hours, depending on the type of extraction being performed. After shaking, the samples are filtered through paper filters into a test tube to be used later in sample analysis. The extraction equipment is washed between extractions using high purity water. Here in one of our analytical labs, sample extracts from the extraction lab are measured for nutrient concentrations. Computer-controlled auto-samplers pick up a small amount of sample extract and the measurement is done. These measurements are then transferred into our LIMS database where the data is later placed on the final report to the agronomist. In this analytical lab, measurements for sulphate, base cations, and micronutrients are made. Here is another one of our analytical labs. In this lab, measurements are made for nitrate, phosphate, chloride, and ammonium. Again, computer-controlled autosamplers help to speed along the automated analysis process. In our pH and EC lab, this instrument measures soil pH and electrical conductivity. Farmer's Edge widely uses automated analysis throughout the lab to increase efficiency and minimize errors. After the lab analysis is complete, a final review of all quality control is done by technicians, and report review and report delivery is done. All soil test results are reviewed on a field-by-field basis as a final quality assurance step before being delivered to the agronomist. We hope you've enjoyed this look at the soil analysis process at Farmer's Edge Laboratories.